So the Indian metropolitan city seems to be one of the more interesting sites where private sector real estate developers and developments, especially the ones that are market oriented and profit seeking, seem to be encountering the natural limits that are being posed by everyday climate events like flooding or the progressive loss of water resources, which has been some of the more invisible foundations which has allowed the continuous spread of these real estate developments into the geographic peripheries of Indian metropolitan cities, with very high-end real estate, residential and corporate IT parks coming up in the peripheries of the city. Higher frequency of conversations around sustainable development or ESG goals that are there in these private sector conclaves that are happening now. The presence of impact investors, sort of much stronger position that private sector development membership bodies like Urban Land Institute, the kind of the position that they're taking in India. So they have arrived in India last year. They're setting up an office. They're taking a much stronger sort of a position here. All of this, I think, sort of points towards certain shifts that are happening within the private sector. How will the state respond to these shifts, and will that terrain of public-private that has emerged in the country, will that also sort of see sort of a shift or even probably a more fundamental kind of a restructuring? That is yet to be seen. But a lot of the writing has had to kind of encounter these changes from, sort of this descriptive morphological unpacking of what it is doing to land relations, what is it doing to water system relations, waste, energy, transfers between urban and peri-urban areas. But I also see that more recently there has been sort of this shift within this as well towards a more ethnographic kind of an approach towards writing about this development, more of an insider approach, more towards trying to understand the logics within the system. What are the incentives within the system? What are those negotiations looking like in this public-private terrain? I do think that it is challenging because entry into these spaces is in itself a very complicated and, sort of a creative almost kind of a space to navigate. I think there is more and more of this, but it absolutely requires, many young urban researchers to start to take an interest in this area and to figure out some of the ways in which this space can be navigated, not only necessarily from an urban research kind of an approach, but in the ways that urban research and urban practice can sort of come together, and in the ways that it does come together every day in global South cities, especially in Indian metropolitan cities or Indian second and third tier cities, and how those can be some of the spaces to not only be part of these processes in practice as they are emerging, but also to then to reflect from them and to write from them in urban research.